Hello, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Chris Cardillo. I'm the Vice President of Technology over at CloudGrid Solutions. We're going to be talking about a disaster recovery solution for every business. This solution is a market-leading technology, and it makes DR simple, fast, and affordable. CloudGrid provides an enterprise-class platform for IT professionals to achieve DR at a reasonable cost. This means fast onboarding, simple management, and low-cost maintenance for the IT staff. CloudGrid was established in 2011. Its corporate headquarters are in Miami, Florida, with its data center at CoreSite. It's had 100% revenue growth year over year, and its infrastructure is built on Cisco, VMware, and EMC. The ideal disaster recovery and backup solution would include an enterprise-class virtual replication solution. It's automated, creates continuous data protection, and has an off-site backup or DR target. In this solution, we are going to show you how we can support VMware, HyperV, and also be cloud. In this solution, you can actually test your DR, test your backups, test upgrades and updates before you deploy them, and you can easily fail over and fail back in the case of an actual disaster. This slide shows the multiple different ways that you can actually leverage your DR solution. In the case of a customer location where you have a single location, we initially start the backup potentially between the main server location, which happens to be on the customer or at the customer's location, and it synchronizes with the CloudGrid's data center. This could either be your data center, our cloud-based data center, or it could be another location in your infrastructure. Maybe you have multiple sites and you want to do a DR between your 2 or 3 sites. In this case, the customer has a location where their server room is located on premises. They are synchronizing between that location and our data center. Now, we're also going to assume that we have a second replication that may be going on with another customer location or another data center. In the case of a disaster, the customer A location is no longer in service. However, we can easily turn on those replicated services in the CloudGrid data center. And when the customer creates a customer B location, maybe it happens to be another office, or they acquire a new office and acquire new equipment and put the information there, we can easily replicate back to the customer and actually create that data back in the customer location as it was previously. And we can do this using any new hardware that they purchase, as well as we can even do it on 2 different types of hypervisors. In most solutions, you have to buy exact equipment that you had originally started with, and that may not be possible. In a hybrid cloud, this is actually the future of computing. And what we're seeing is that 70% of enterprises are pursuing a hybrid cloud solution even by this year. And that number is going up dramatically by 2019. In this solution, in this DR solution, we're able to be very flexible to do either private cloud. We can create a DR solution between 2 satellite offices or main office and another office location at the client. And we can also synchronize between our public cloud or our private cloud. And CloudGrid is probably the only cloud provider out there that can treat your data like it was an extension of your own data center and create a private cloud. And how do we do this? We actually do this with a layer 2 line connectivity and typically a fiber line between your main office and our data center. No other public cloud provider offers this service. More and more systems are actually considered critical. What we're seeing is that in years past, people might say, oh, I may only need my email app as business critical or mission critical, and that may be the only server that I'll want to create as a DR replication, or they focus primarily on that as their mission critical application to get back up and running. But what we're seeing today is that the mission critical and the business critical applications are increasing exponentially, and the non-critical applications are becoming less and less. In this slide, you can see that there's only 29% what people consider non-critical applications. As a whole, almost every business is looking to replicate their entire data center over. And the reason why many times people would not create a fully replicated data center is possibly because of cost. And we have eliminated that with this CloudGrid DR solution. Many types of replication solutions exist out in the marketplace today. However, not all of them are hypervisor based. And this is a big distinction because the more virtual aware that you are, the better options you have as far as recovery. And because our solution, the CloudGrid solution, runs at the hypervisor level, we are flexible in the way that we can actually recover and make our targets based on different hardware and different software, and we can actually replicate back to different hardware and also replicate back to either VMware or Microsoft. If you look at this slide, you can see that in the bottom right-hand corner, you have array-based, and this is non-hypervisor aware software. And sometimes it may be even slightly hypervisor aware, but in the case of hardware, they force you to buy only their hardware. In this case, if you're buying HP and you're using their DR solution, you need to buy the exact same HP equipment, even if it's more expensive, even if you get a better deal on other hardware or other, let's say you see a EMC VNX that you get a phenomenal deal on, you're going to have to stick with your HP deal. Why? Because it's a proprietary solution, and that solution is inflexible. So we find that this is where people need to be, moving their DR solution to a software-defined data center. Replication and DR are in the wrong place in most software, and it's usually at the physical layer. Hypervisor-based replication is the key. Take a look at this virtual replication architecture. In this scenario, we are actually looking at what we're doing at the hypervisor level. And here we've got our primary data center. Let's say this is the client with their data is actually on their servers in their server room. And we have the CloudGrid solution is actually running as a VM within vCenter server. We are replicating over to either a second data center, or in this case, it could be CloudGrid's data center, and actually running that replication back and forth. All the block changes are happening across the wire. In this case, it shows it as a WAN, and that could either be over a standard internet connection or a layer 2 fiber connection dedicated, which is private. And if you look here at the bottom, you can actually see that the client could be running Pure Storage, IBM Storage, NetApp Storage, anything on the hardware layer, right? Doesn't matter what they're running, and honestly, it really doesn't matter whether they're running VMware or Microsoft either. They could be running either of the two. Over on the second data center, you can see that we're actually running different hardware. In this case, we're showing Nimble Storage and EMC. So no matter what you're running on the actual physical layer or even on the hypervisor layer, we can still synchronize across and create a DR solution. And this is a flexible way for recovery. So you may have, let's say, a situation where a client acquires another client or another business, and maybe they bring in different hardware. Because of that, we're able to create a replication even though there's different hardware underneath that, and still have the single pane of glass which shows the replication going back to the main data center or to the secondary data center, wherever that replication is occurring. So it allows you multiple flexible options. No matter what happens within your business, you can replicate no matter what kind of hardware you have back into our cloud or your own personal cloud infrastructure. So we're taking a look at this here. We actually are looking at recovery points, and we're talking about seconds. There's no app performance impact. Why? Because it's not actually installed on the VM itself. Many DR software actually has to be running on the VM itself, and if it fails or if it has a software conflict with one of the applications running on that VM, then you have difficulties. In this case, this runs as a separate VM independent of the actual VM itself. It's highly scalable. Why? Because there's nothing to download. Run this as a service or as another VM within your ESX or HyperV scenario. And because of its optimized bandwidth and WAN resiliency, we can do DR over even a very small pipe. Although we do highly recommend a private line going between your data center and our data center, or between your data center and your office building if you're doing the DR between your two locations. A private WAN link will create a very solid and very private cloud-based synchronization. Now you can replicate from anything to anything. In this case, you can save costs. You don't get locked in to a specific hardware platform. You can have NetApp or EMC or HP or whatever you may have at each of the different locations. And you can do point-in-time recovery, recovering from logical failures based on any point in time that was set up in the initial setup. So let's say you have it set up for every 2 minutes to do a replication. Well, then you can go back to the longest point in time that you would like to go to. Maybe it's 10 minutes ago or 12 minutes ago or 14 minutes ago, and recover a point in time snapshot of that server instance back to the way it was. And you could either recover it and start running from it in the new data center, or you can recover it as a test backup, and even to pull some files if you're looking at just treating it as if it were a backup. You can protect what end users care about, and this is application protection. In the case of SAP, Microsoft Exchange, a SQL Server, Oracle, you can ensure application consistency when you recover. Because you are recovering it at the VM level, you are taking a snapshot of the server as it was at that point in time. So you are not dealing with having to recover the operating system, reinstalling anything from scratch. The point-in-time snapshot gets these servers as they are running. It almost works as if it were the changes were being made in, say, Microsoft SQL. So it does not use SQL, but it works very similar to that. Recovery of applications, not just data. So in this case, even if the SQL server or the Microsoft server, Exchange server happens to be running, you do not have to shut down those services in order to make a good quality backup, because it's taking a snapshot of the virtual machine as it's running. It's actually taking it as it was, and when it recovers, it will be as it was. The VMDK creates a consistent backup. It is protected across server and storage locations and fully supports vMotion, storage motion, HA, high availability through VMware. It uses group policies and configurations and supports VSS. And all this happens very quickly. Recovery time, we're talking about minutes. On the initial recovery, let's say we're actually bringing up a point-in-time snapshot and bringing it up as if either as a test or something that we can use to do some testing on, maybe test an a Windows update or maybe a full upgrade to one of your main applications and see how it runs before you actually deploy it across, you can do that on the fly, and it only takes minutes to bring your system back up. In a DR scenario, similarly, it only takes minutes to bring up your VMs. You click and you can test anytime. CloudGrid's offsite backup solution shows that you can dramatically reduce your impact on the production of your applications. In years past, what you'd have to do is have enough disk space on your existing equipment in order to recover a backup. In this solution, you don't have to worry about that because all of your data is stored at the core site on CloudGrid's data infrastructure. We have enough data to support any scenario of recovery that you need. So if you need to recover and it takes up a whole, let's say if it's a 2 terabyte server and you're recovering that server, you can bring that server up and you don't have to worry about the amount of data that you have on your equipment to do your test recoveries or even an actual recovery so you can do some testing, or in the case of a real disaster, you can actually recover all of your data as it was at that point in time. You can exceed typical retention requirements. Let's say if you want to keep multiple daily, weekly, and monthly copies, or in this case, multiple every 2 minute or every minute or every 15-minute copies, you can do that. And you can enhance your disaster recovery services with a fully integrated backup. You may even have another backup solution, but this DR solution also acts as a backup. Disaster recovery as a service, the cloud architecture is very flexible. In the case of CloudGrid's architecture, we actually use EMC and Cisco. You, on your side, may have one of a number of pieces of hardware on your infrastructure. In this case, the example here is data center or customer A data center may have Pure Storage, NetApp, IBM. You may have another location that has IBM, EMC, Nimble. Because of the way the software is architected, we actually don't care what you're running on. You may have HP, you may have EMC, you may have Nimble, but because the software is extracted at the hypervisor level, we can work with all of those hardware platforms. We have a rich set of APIs that also integrate with our solution and can create a reporting and workflow integration so that you can keep up with all of the changes that may be happening and watching different panels of information for your IT infrastructure. Top causes for business downtime. And this is something that you sit down and start thinking about what are the worst case scenarios. These are the top ones that we see. If you look at operational failure, and that comprises probably the majority of actual disasters, in this case power failure, hardware failure, network failure, and IT software failure. That's probably what happens more than anything else. We can recover from those. Natural disasters, in this case, especially down here in Florida, we're looking at hurricanes, floods, winter storms, fire, earthquakes. And then, of course, there's the human element. Maybe there's an error that somebody makes, security or a malicious outsider, such as the different viruses or malware that has been hitting systems. And you may have a malicious insider, somebody, maybe a staff person who infiltrated or maybe gets mad at the company and decides to do something to affect the system. A chemical spill, a terrorist act, and there's, of course, many other sources of business downtime. And all of these solutions can be avoided by using a DR solution like the CloudGrid DR as a service solution. The impact of disruption can be tremendous. If you look at loss of employee productivity alone, if you start taking the number of employees that you have at your company and you multiply their hourly rate versus the downtime potential. Just even take 1 hour of a company downtime per employee, and you can see the actual huge benefits of dealing with a DR solution that can get you back up and running within minutes. But there's plenty of other impacts of disruption. In this case, employee morale, loss of business opportunities, lost revenue, loss of customer confidence, damaged corporate reputation, loss of partner trust, and even compensation issues. DR testing is trending upwards, and IT people are often straddled with time constraints on themselves, and certainly because of cost constraints. And so therefore, DR tends to take a back seat to many of the other activities. And so, yet in the back of almost every good IT person's mind, they're always wondering whether their disaster recovery plan actually works. And with our system, because it is so simple to do a recovery test, we are able to do those tests during the day. Does not require any downtime by the client or the client's users, and you can do it at any point in time. So you don't have to wait until a weekend, until Friday night at midnight, nothing like that. And so what we're saying is that now with this technology, we can do DR testing anytime you want. If you want to do it once a week, once a day, it's trending up, and some people, you see that people are only testing their DR solutions twice a year. Well, we see with this solution, you can do that plenty more times than that, because remember, you're only as good as your last test. Recovery time and recovery points have been lengthening, and partly this is because of the large volume increase of data that is occurring at people's locations. And even though bandwidth has been going through the roof and coming down in price, no matter how much bandwidth you keep adding, you're still straddled by the amount of data that you are transferring. The CloudGrid DR solution uses block level changes, and so after the initial sync, you're really only talking about a very small fraction of data changes that are going over the wire. And so because of that, recovery time can be done in seconds, as opposed to, in this scenario, most former and older DR solutions, people are actually looking at 17 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours, 18 hours, 24 hours as the average mean to recover from a disaster scenario. So we think that reducing your DR time makes a great business sense, because even if you at the minimal level here at 4.8 hours, if you multiply 4.8 times the number of employees and the amount that those employees earn on a per hour basis, you can see the efficiency and how much you'd actually save just by having a DR solution in place. The solution is very simple, and we've said this a number of times throughout this, but here's and we're going to do a couple of screenshots here in a second to do a recovery or test a recovery. What this does is it makes it simple for whoever's handling the IT at the office, and it facilitates quick and easy recovery by even lower techs within your organization. If you look at here's where we're doing a quick failover test, and this is actually between a London data center and the New York data center. We're actually doing a test with SQL Server failover, and you can see how clean and very easy it is to highlight, select, click next, and now we're on to the next screen here. Here we're going to choose a point in time of the snapshot. In this screen, you can see all the point-in-time snapshots. In this case, we actually have them at multiple seconds. It looks like every 5 seconds there is a snapshot being made. We select that snapshot, and we move on to the next piece of the, or click next, and now we're here. And we can click the button to start the failover test. What happens in the background, and this is on VMware, you can see that the CloudGrid folder structure is actually being created as you create this test. There's nothing for you to have to do on the server to create this instance. It's actually created for you automatically, as this is already set up to work easily. So that recovery folder is right there for you. It's created. You don't have to do anything within the infrastructure. You don't have to create any LUNs. You don't have to go out there and create any VMs. All of that is done for you. And when you end your test, all of that is eliminated and cleaned up for you, so you don't have to worry about that either. You can see here, it brings you over to the main dashboard where you can see the failover test is completed and ready for you to launch that VM in your test environment. 10Kate is a case study, and this is one of the clients that has implemented this solution, and they had a 300 gig server that they were able to fail over within 4 to 15 seconds. And this is an actual case. This is something that he said that he did it within 10 minutes, and certainly he did a failover and fail back on a Friday afternoon, but he could have done that in the morning, could have done it during lunch, could have done it any time during the day, because it has no effect upon the client itself. Obviously, when you shut down one server and bring on another server, there is a delay there, so just launching the server takes a few minutes anyway. So in this case, he shut down the other server, the old server, brought up the new server in the DR scenario, and was able to do all of that and bring up the new server and have the clients working off that new server within 10 minutes. So to recap, CloudGrid, our DR solution, is market-leading technology. Cisco has adopted this software as they recognize it as a market-leading technology. It is simple, it is fast, affordable, but more importantly, because of the way it's architected, it is very flexible and scalable, and it is cloud aware. So you can migrate over to your own data center, another office that you might have, to our cloud infrastructure, or all the above. There's many ways to create that and architect that. It creates seamless onboarding, and it has protection for your company no matter whether the disaster is an operational, a natural disaster, or a human-caused event. If you want to talk further about this or actually do a real live demo, we can do this. Just either give me a call at the number below, 305-570-2864, or you can send me an email at chris@cloud-grid.net, and I look forward to talking to you and talking to you further about the CloudGrid DR solution for all businesses. Thank you again for attending this webinar. I look forward to talking to you and look forward to the next webinar. Thanks again.